All right, we're live. A little late, but that's okay. I'm here with Sarah Rose for the second time, and this is going to be fun. Sarah spoke with me, I think it was a year ago, maybe a little bit longer,
Right.
about her latest book, and I wanted to talk to her about writing. And while we're having that conversation, I realized that she was also an interesting person. And so, this particular series that I'm doing, which is called the Being series, is where I learn about how a person came to be, as well as their, thoughts about the world. And so Sarah is perfect for this. So thank you, Sarah, for coming on.
Thank you for having me. Very
hmm
flattered.
Let me do something. I'm going to read what's on your website for those who might be watching, and then also who will see the recording later about who you are. And if you want to add or modify, please do so. So, Sarah Rose is a journalist and best-selling author of D-Day Girls, the spies who armed the resistance, sabotaged the Nazis, and helped win World War II. This is the one that we talked about. And she also wrote before that, For All the Tea in China, How England Stole the World's Favorite Drink and Changed History. Okay. We have something in common in that we kind of both like history. Um, you, I think, a bit more intensely, but I do like to kind of watch like war documentaries and read books in the past. So she was a news columnist at the Wall Street Journal, and her features have appeared in it's quite a lot: Outside, the Washington Post, Departures, the New York Post, Travel and Leisure, Bon Appetit, the Saturday Evening Post, and Men's Journal. Sarah is a graduate of Harvard College and the University of Chicago. Okay, so what did I leave out?
Ooh, I'm working on my next book,
Uh-huh,
which is going to be a bestseller too as soon as it's written.
I'm sure. Okay. All right. Well, let's dive in. I want to get to know you a little bit better if I can. So
Okay.
think back to when you were around 30, 31, 32, and it's in the evening, midweek, Wednesday.
Okay.
What were you likely doing?
I was undoubtedly going on blind dates nonstop.
Okay.
I was like very determined.
Okay. All right. Like, I mean, did any of them lead to a long-term relationship?
Oh, many of them led to long-term relationships. None of
Mhm.
them took necessarily in a permanent
I,
way.
okay. I've never been on a blind date. I mean, I would find
Oh,
that terrifying.
bless your heart. That's so nice.
I mean, you don't know the person. I mean, what do you do? You
You
just like,
don't.
how do you even start the conversation? You know?
Ah, right. So you have a bit of advanced like prep work, right? You see them
Mhm.
on a dating site, online,
Oh, I
or on
see.
your
Okay.
phone,
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
and so you know that uh, they like to be photographed with fish in front of Machu Picchu and can ride a motorcycle, and they're nice to their grandmother or something like that. And so
Uh-huh.
you have a kind of basic outline of who they are, and if there are any of your red flags, you've probably like weeded out the people,
Mhm.
the obvious ones. You hope.
Okay. All right. Okay, that's different then. All right. So if you're going on a if you met someone online
Mhm.
and you're going out with them, then um I would that's a nearsighted date. It's not really
Yes.
a
Right.
blind date. But so yes, I've certainly done that, where I kind of know a little bit about the person and then we meet and then we kind of chat. Those don't work for me either, but I've certainly done that. Okay, all right. Um Fair enough. And you were living in New York City at that time?
I was. And I was just frantically sort of in that panic of like, I've got to get it all done. I've got to get it all right. And round about then, uh, my mom got sick. So
Mhm,
that notion, I think it gets repeated for lots and lots of people of like, oh, I've got everything to do everything under deadline. Then suddenly you're like, oh, my whole life's been blown apart. There's no
mhm,
deadlines. I need to help my family and I need to keep my head above water. And I am and there were several years that felt like a state of kind of constant crisis. Um, but so 31, 32, I look back, I was like, oh, those were those nice years right before I had to like be a grown up and take on a lot of catastrophe. And And apparently being a grown up is just varying like waves and of catastrophe flowing your way.
Yeah, that's about right. That's right. I'm trying to hold off on adulthood. I mean, even at this late stage. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't have you know, I have some responsibility, but I don't have to take care of any kids or anything. So, I've been, you know, it's kind of too late for me to do that. But I kind of get this idea. I mean, you said, you wanted to get it all done at a certain time. And so when I was around that age, I think I was still in graduate school, but I was wrapping up. And so I said to myself, okay, the next stage, you got to get married. It
Right.
just seemed like the thing that I was supposed to do. And so that's what I did. I probably forced that, but I had this sense that I needed to do that. That was the time,
Yeah.
which is a mistake, I
And there was
think.
like diminishing returns, right? Like it was this game of like musical chairs, and you didn't want to be the last one without like a chair.
So in your circle of friends, so does that happen? Like you got circle of friends and everyone's like, okay, I don't want to be the last one to do a certain thing like that.
No, it was more that like there was a finite number of men in a city like New
Ah,
York, and you
yeah.
didn't want to be the last one. After they'd all been picked off, all of the sort of normal ones, then you were only left with like uh, some peculiar ones.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And none of
Well,
that
that's
was true,
bad.
of course. That like it's not a game of musical chairs because people like sometimes they sit on a chair, then they get bounced off a chair. Some of them are don't want a chair at all. But that was the sort of metaphor. I was like, you've just gotta like hurry. There's a diminishing vein to mine of available men, and boy, I'm glad that didn't last. So I was wrong.
And you wrote about some of that stuff, right? I mean, I think in browsing your website, I saw where you had written about that. So,
I have had two different dating columns. This is how you know you're a failure as a dating columnist, is that like uh basically they all kind of need to end happily ever after. Like they need to
uh-huh.
just sort of like send you off into heterosexually pair bonded bliss and wrap it up with a bow and then give the dating column to someone new. And that never happened. Like my
Mhm.
editors kind of would come to me and they'd be like, yeah, you've been at this for a while. It seems to not be working out. Maybe we should move on.
Really? I didn't know it worked like that. But I guess that makes sense, though. I mean, so you were giving the readers a journey of your dating,
And
that would have eventually ended with you, getting married, and it never happened. So they said, "Well,
yeah,
gosh, that means you're not a good columnist." Is that what is that
I
what
mean, you've
happened?
sort of failed at dating if all you do is keep dating and not actually like stop for like good reasons. Good again, heterosexually pair bonded reasons. But
Yeah. Mhm. Oh, that's
so
interesting.
yeah, there
Yeah.
were two different. I had one column that was go on a date a week and write about it, like, and that lasted almost 2 years. Then I had another column where I was now so seasoned, so good at my job of dating that I could give lots of
Mhm.
advice, and that was a lot more fun. And that lasted until the magazine died and the great magazine die off of modern media. So
Mhm.
that was for men's fitness.
Okay. Well, you know what? I subscribed to that magazine some time ago. Maybe I read something that you wrote and didn't realize that some years later I'd be chatting with you right now.
Still
Yeah.
single, I know. Did Sarah accomplish the thing she wanted? Mm.
Yeah, did you?
Huh. Did I? It's so interesting because I feel like the pandemic's placed this like 2 year pause on like getting anything you wanted, it was just sort of like, well, we've been in this suspended animation. So I no longer have access even like emotionally to like the things that I wanted in the before because the past 2 years have so radically like rewritten all of the scripts. So did I get the things I wanted? Like, yeah, I think if I were to like talk to like 14-year-old Sarah and be like, hey, okay, you write for a living and people seem to enjoy your books, and you haven't failed at that, and you spend every winter if you can in Hawaii and you've gotten to see the world. Like that would look like success to teenage
Yes,
me.
yeah.
So that would be me getting the things I wanted. Certainly professionally, like I've been extremely fortunate. But then there are all these ways. I mean, are we ever happy? Like there are all these things that I have to complain about, even within that broader like a sense of accomplishment.
Yeah. Happiness is very fleeting. As soon as you get a little bit of it, then that's no longer happiness anymore, and then you have to keep moving on. Yeah,
I don't
that's
know. Like, I
true.
mean, it's a certain level of contentedness, but it's more like, well, it'd be nice if my career were a little more stable, or if it had gotten stable earlier, or if, I
I know
wasn't so
exactly.
exhausted all the time.
Okay, so that I don't know, but the part that you were, or at least I don't have that issue. But the idea that, like, you have some goalposts, and then when you get to that point, you realize, well, I could have done something else, or I could have done a little bit more. I mean, I feel that a lot, actually. Like, I would, if you'd have told me when I was growing up in the backwoods of South Carolina that I would be tenured, and I had done the writing that I had done, uh, I would have said, "No way, dude. That's never gonna happen, right?" Um, but now it's like, well, gosh, I'm just at a mid-tier university. Why am I not? Like I have these other
Right.
things that I'm putting in my head, to make me not as happy as I could be. Um, but yeah, I mean, I guess that's just the human condition in a way, right? That's just how it is.
Yeah. And I mean, there's a writer I really admire and who has the same editor that I have. Hugely famous author Eric Larson, who wrote Devil in the White City.
Oh yes, I know.
And so he took me out for a drink to celebrate my new book, and I was just sort of being like, man, like I'm getting kind of old to like still be making like grad student money, like at
Mhm.
what point do you just does the and I'm a success, right? Like I have all these accomplishments, but it's still like financially pretty precarious. And he said, and he is extremely famous and not at all. His life is not precarious. And he said, when my second or Isaac Storm, his first big bestseller came out, his in-laws said to him, "Well, I guess this writing thing just isn't working out for you, is it?" And he was like on the New York Times bestseller list, and he went on to become one of like the bestest selling authors on earth. And he was like, "Yeah, no, I never forgave him, even after they died." And so it's like, okay, you can be someone even at his stature, and there are still going to be those things where you're like, man, it took a long time to get here, and I'm still pretty resentful about like the bumps along the way.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I precarity. I would like to have had a little less precarity along the way.
Yeah. Um, well, I mean, so the lifespan of an author is something where, your best years are probably ahead of you.
God, I hope so. I
I'm
sure hope so.
sure. I'm sure. I'm sure. Yeah.
I mean, I get to be a better writer with every
Uh,
project, I think. Like, I see a development in my craft and skill. Um, you know, I, there aren't a lot of writers who don't also have some kind of other hustle, right? Like, I'm not teaching and I'm not married. And so, like, doing it this way is really like a kind of white knuckle existence. And I don't recommend it.
yeah. Yeah.
I would
Writing.
like it to be less white knuckly.
Yeah. I understand. I totally do. So you're like the third or fourth, and it's a common theme. I think you're the fourth writer that I've spoken with, and all the people have written things that have been on the bestseller lists, to varying degrees and lengths. And they all say the same thing. It's like, this. I love what I do, but yeah, it can be tough sometimes because there's no steady paycheck coming in. Some of them teach, and others just kind of, I guess, white knuckle it, as you said. All right, I want to try something. So I got
Okay.
this software here allows me to share things and play it, and we can watch it together.
Uh oh.
So I'm gonna try that. I'm gonna try to share my screen, and yeah, share window or screen. Um, why is it asking me to do this? Okay, this may not work. Okay, let's see here. All right, what I'm trying to show is a clip from Girls Who Like Boys Who Like Boys. This is what I want to do. So we'll
Okay.
see if it works. Um,
It's super okay if it doesn't. I'm just letting you know.
come on. I mean, maybe it's good. Okay,
This is
well, all
not
right.
high quality TV.
Well, okay, there it is. So that's the restream thing. But I think it's going to work, Sarah.
Okay. Oh no,
Good
that's
for
too
me and maybe
bad.
not for you, but it's going to work. So, I want to show. Oh, come on. Why is it doing this? Okay, so I can't see. Okay, I can't see you while I'm playing this. So I'm going to play it.
Okay.
It's not that long. I don't know when the last time you saw it. I saw it. I think last
Oh
night,
gosh.
and I said, "Oh,
Jesus.
wow, that's Sarah." So let
Oh
me play
no.
it, and then we can kind of talk about
Yikes. All right.
All right, I think that's good enough. I think that's good enough. So the
Yeah, it's
first
plenty.
question, the first, the first question I want to ask. All right, how do I stop sharing? How do I stop sharing? Uh, Stop sharing. So the first question I want to ask is, did this man leave you? Or are you still friends?
Oh gosh, he's my still my very best friend. Yes, yes.
Okay, awesome.
Absolutely. No,
So
he didn't leave us. And no, and in fact, so the sort of pulling off the backdrop on reality TV, we're the only ones who are still friends of that whole show.
okay, okay. Well, I'm good then. I mean, so I want to ask. Um, First off, you're very photogenic. I mean, you have you look good on TV.
Thanks.
Um, yeah. How did this happen?
So, Joel, my best friend, is a musical theater composer. And
Mhm.
there was someone in the theater world who was casting for this idea for a reality show. And this is early days reality TV when I think Jersey Shore was maybe in its first year, right? So it's this early boom. There was Survivor, and then they started to do this kind of like, oh, we can put people in a pressure cooker and see how they react. And that's fun. I think the Housewives were like a year or two old. And so uh, they, someone he knew was casting for uh, this show called Girls Who Like Boys Who Like Boys. The idea being that it was a sort of underrepresented story of straight women and their gay best friends. And they divided it up into uh, different life cycle events for a gay man in America. So coming out, uh, getting married, uh, a surrogacy story, and an AIDS story. And the coming out story was like fictional. Um, it was just a bunch of kid actors who really wanted to be on TV, and it worked. And one of them still
Hmm.
has a career. And the surrogacy story was like completely fake, as in that the woman only like shot like one day with the director. She was married to.
Wait a minute. Wait, are you revealing the secrets of
I
reality
can tell you
TV? That
everything
stuff
about
is
this.
not true.
There's so much fiction here. And anyway, she dropped out, and so they only had like one day's worth of like episodes with her. She was married to like an NBA player and was like, "This is dumb, this is crazy," and so she quit. But they still wanted that storyline. And then yeah, the AIDS story. So we were the gay marriage story, and this is still like separate drinking fountains. There was no gay marriage when we were
Mhm.
shooting that was legal in New York. Like there hadn't been the decision that sort of opened it up nationwide. So my best friend's husband is from Iowa. We all flew out to Iowa because it was one of the first states in the union that was actually like where it was legal. I think it was the first state where it was like a proper marriage, not a civil union. And so had the official wedding in Iowa with cameras, which made his husband crazy. And it was like a happy ending. We were the sweethearts of the show, which makes for very boring TV, right? Like we didn't get a lot of screen time because there were no
Right. Right.
conflicts. We aren't
Uh-huh.
throwing things at each other like the housewives, and we don't fight. We're like super conflict avoidant. So we make terrible reality TV. And we thought, wait, why would anybody do this? It's like, why would you expose yourself to this? And I had my first book coming out. He had a book um, out that was like very on point. So my first
Ah,
book was about like imperial China and like intellectual property theft. I mean, it was not reality TV material, but Joel's book, it was his first book was called Swish. It's actually his second book. His first book was called something like 69 Gay Haikus. But this was Swish was a book about his attempts to become the gayest man alive. Right? He like learned to knit. He became a cheerleader. And every single chapter was like one more sort of moment in trying to find his gay identity as being like the gayest. And it's a very
mhm.
beautiful memoir, and it's sort of heartbreaking and hilarious, and I can't think say it, but and really on point, right? So a whole bunch of people watching a gay TV show should want to buy that book. We didn't sell a single book. Like having your book on TV did no good whatsoever.
Wow.
And we
Wow.
just like gave up our lives for this for absolutely no benefit. You can still, there was enough Amazon at that point you could watch week by week, and you're like, yeah, no, I'm not selling anything. It turns out that the people who watch reality TV don't read, and that should have been obvious, but like we didn't figure
Well,
it
yes,
out
if you
until it
think
was
about
all
it.
over. Like,
Interesting. Wow. Well, all right. First, I do watch a lot of reality TV now. So I
how many books
so
have you bought
I break,
that you saw on reality TV?
well, I still have to do my share amount of reading, but I understand that I'm an outlier.
Right.
So that's true. Because at this point, I am like literally binge. Like I'll get up in the morning and I'll say, okay, I've got to grade these papers, or I'm working on this column, and so I'll start naked and afraid and just let it run, and then I'll just grade papers and write because I don't have to follow. It takes no mental effort. It's just people talking.
Right.
So that's what I've watched. Naked and Afraid and 90 Day Fiance. All the different editions. So, um, but what you've done here, Sarah, is you've spoiled it for me because now so there's always this sneaking suspicion that those couples on 90 Day Fiance really do get along. It's just that they're just plucking pieces of conflict to make it more dramatic, and more tense than it actually is. And I kind of knew that, but I didn't want to believe it. But of course, I mean that's really what happens. And so, but that's interesting.
I mean,
Um,
there are people for whom that's like a pleasure. Like let's milk it for the camera. That's just not who we were. We couldn't make ourselves like throw drinks in each
but
other's
that's
face.
good
That
though.
was just
You're genuine. I mean, why make up something? So
yeah. The reviewers were like they're the most likable ones, and we're like, yeah, no, it's because we actually like each other. Like we're still friends 10 years later. No one else is.
yeah, wow, that's something. And you know what? I bet that storyline or that particular type of reality show wouldn't even get on TV now. You would have
Right.
to do something. I mean, that's commonplace now, which is good actually. Like I mean, it's not a curiosity to see gay people and gay people married on television.
Right. And that had, up until that point, if there was going to be a gay best friend, they were the sidekick. Right. And so
Mhm.
they thought it was, oh, we're totally upending it. The straight girl's the sidekick.
That's
And now
right. That's
that's
right. Which is clever, actually. That was kind of clever. Yeah, yeah.
sure. And, again, but like separate drinking fountains, like the memory of that goes away really fast. Right. Like gay marriage
Mm.
was legalized, and now everybody can get gay married, they can get gay divorced. Like, and the second class status of you're only a sidekick, you're never a bride, that's over. So I'm glad. And it
Yes,
was
yes. I mean, it's
successful
a
for
good
us
thing.
anyway.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. All right. Well, let me. You're a very worldly person, right? You read a lot. You understand things. You got your thumb on the pulse of the world, that kind of thing. Uh, so, Miss Sarah Rose, what is wrong with the world and how do you fix it?
Mm. Gosh, well, first of all, there are a lot of people who are genuine policy people who have lots of really good ideas, and I
Mhm.
defer to all of them. There are lots of people who know more than I do, but I was thinking about like what the single best thing that has ever happened to me like developmentally is I just went to this like absolutely wonderful school. Um, I was extremely lucky. I was a kid on campus at the University of Chicago where there's a laboratory school. And I went to the same school from the time I was 3 till I was 18. And it's all like
Hmm.
small classrooms and self guided learning and play and democracy. And it's all like the ideals that we love. Um, and and that above all things shaped me. Like that is I who I am is because I went to this like nerd school that I just adored and still adore. Like I had lunch with one of my high school teachers last week. So um
That's nice.
and so I think everybody deserves that. Like it's a weird thing to me that here we are in the richest country in the world and we have such diverse outcomes with education, and so much of it is because of the way education is funded, right? That we it shouldn't be funded at the local level for one, because then poorer, more isolated places get poorer, more isolated schooling, and the richer places get like more resources. We should direct a lot more of our national resource at education, and we should just strive to give everybody the same kind of really like precious education I got in my nerdy little school. So that would be what I would fix. Like overall, I would just throw all the money at it.
Yeah, I mean, hey, I think, I mean, as someone on the left, I mean, I would certainly agree with that. That's just I mean, the quality in schools from rich, poor, black, white, urban, rural, even, or suburban and rural, maybe. It's just too different. So I'm like on the ground floor with that. So my sister is a math teacher. I'm actually in her place now. I'm sitting Indian style on the floor in a spare room. That's how much I wanted to talk to you, Sarah. I wanted to make sure I get a chance. So anyway, I'm here and she's in South Carolina. This is where I am, and she'll tell me these stories. I mean, she's moved to 3 or 4 different schools, and she started in a very, um for South Carolina, it's a pretty high-end school, and, and then she moved to one where it's disproportionately Black, and she'll tell me the differences, and it's like night and day, in terms of the classes that are offered, the class sizes, the quality of the teachers, I mean, all that stuff. So, yeah, it's almost criminal how that happens.
Yeah.
But,
And it's, I
yeah.
mean, right. So we take a 200-year history of like racist institutions and then we bake it into the next generation from like go. And that's terrible. It's such a disservice to like our most important, resource. So that's how I would fix it. It's not a very complicated, well thought through set of like
No.
policy, but the very best thing that ever happened to me was I had the world's greatest schooling. So I think everybody
Yeah.
else should have the very best thing that happened to them be that too. Um,
Yeah, no, I agree. It's not complicated. It doesn't need to be complicated. If I was to answer that question, I mean, education is cool, and that's certainly near the top. But I think I'm starting to warm up to this idea of a universal basic income. Um,
yeah,
I have to learn more about it. But yeah, I mean, for example, all right, you got people who are very creative and can contribute to our society, but they can't because they have to go and do some job that they're not suited for, but they gotta pay the rent. And so, I think if we have enough money that we can have that universe, that UBI, instead of saying that whole thing out, and that will allow people. I mean, it will just unlock a lot of human potential, in my opinion.
absolutely.
And so
And
I'm
in my
learning.
own life, now that I'm like in the middle of things, I can look at various phases of my career. Like at 26, I fell off my mother's health insurance and immediately got a corporate job, right? Because that was
Mm,
the end of being able to sort of like find my way through the world, having any kind of backstop on healthcare.
mhm,
And series of crises, and then suddenly I'm a freelancer and I was putting forward, I was like $10,000 a year of health insurance if I was lucky to get it. And in 2014, we get the ACA, and I get subsidies. And that is suddenly makes it safe to write books again, right? I no
Hmm.
longer have
Yeah,
to be on this
yeah,
like
yeah.
hamster wheel of just feeding the machine of my incredibly expensive, full priced, no matter what my income was, healthcare. Now suddenly there's a subsidy, and like I could write a book. I mean, it really was like freeing the serfs in Russia. Suddenly you get this like flowering of creativity when people aren't just
Yes,
like
yes,
completely.
exactly.
And so I can't, I mean, and that's just a smaller example of it. And we do have the money, from all I understand,
Yeah,
but like
yeah,
to
yeah.
make,
From what I'm
to,
understanding, yeah.
these are policy choices, right? Poverty is a policy choice. Like precarity is a policy choice. We can make better choices.
Hmm.
So,
All right. This has been fun. And nice, nice back and forth, very natural, very organic. It's kind of cool. Let's end with this. What are you up to now?
okay. So, my
Mhm.
newest book is going to be called The Danish Escape. And if everything goes well, it'll come out in the first quarter of 2024, but more likely it'll come out in 2025, because it's a presidential year and nobody reads books in a presidential election. It turns
Really?
out. Yeah. We get
Wait, so when
obsessed
you're
with politics and the whole country turns off.
wow. So okay, so when you're sitting down, I mean, so you don't make this decision, I guess. I guess
Right.
the publisher decides, okay, this is when you want to. I mean, and so I guess they've done all the data crunching to figure this out. But that's just really interesting. So I mean, but it won't take you. Will it take you that long to
No,
finish
so
the
I
book?
mean, nobody understands why publishing takes I mean, the rest of us. I don't. I'm an author and I don't understand. So you sign a book contract. You get 2 years to write the book. Then it takes about a year
Hmm.
to edit it, and then and editing includes a lot of things. It's not just getting your footnotes straightened out and everything. It's picking a cover and talking to the marketing people and talking to the sales reps at Amazon and small indie bookstores to try and get them to want your book and buy enough of your book. So that process is about a year. And so it's a year after they've got what they consider a complete manuscript that you actually get the object of a book. And
Okay.
that's like a
Hmm.
long
Hmm.
time to wait for a check, but that is the way the industry works. So, and then but it means you have enough of a runway that you can say, yeah, we definitely don't want anything to come out on Super Tuesday. No one will see
Right,
that
right,
book.
right. Hmm.
And given how our politics has become so overwhelming, basically, I think nothing comes out in a presidential year until after the election.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
Nobody's
So
got the
I think I cut
bandwidth.
you off.
Okay.
Yeah.
So so my book, it's called The Danish Escape, and
Mhm.
it's the only happy Holocaust story. Basically, it's everybody lives, nobody dies. So
Okay.
in Denmark, in 1943, is when Hitler said, "Okay, time's up, Denmark. We're coming for your Jews," and word got out. So instead of Hitler going door to door and rounding up the entire Jewish population of Denmark, the Danes hid the Jews, like put them all in hiding, and then got them all to the coast and shipped them all off in fishing boats to Sweden. And it was a huge success. So it's kind of a counter narrative to the typical European response. Well, what could we do to resist Hitler? Nobody resisted Hitler. And we're like, well, someone did. Denmark
Mhm.
did. And then that's the sort of broader story. And then I tell my stories through characters, right? So I need somebody that like we can root for and hope for and laugh with. And I have two characters that I am focused on. One is the physicist Niels Bohr, who had a Jewish mother, but also had to get out because the Nazis wanted to recruit him for their atomic bomb. So he escapes across to Sweden ahead of everybody and uses his fame, like uses his position to demand an audience with the King of Sweden. Because up until that point, no one was being given asylum in Sweden. Sweden hadn't given asylum to Norway's Jews, and that's just like over a land border.
Mhm.
So Niels Bohr personally campaigns to the king and says, let my people come, right? Like they don't have anywhere to go. There's no nation on earth right now that is accepting Jews, and that worked. And then I'm
Hmm.
pairing it to a survivor's story that I found that's kind of the most thrilling and sort of like breathtaking survivor story I've ever seen. And it was this testimony of a mother of 4 kids. That's kind of uh, Sophie's Choice meets Titanic. That early on in their hiding, is forced to give up one of her children. She's forced to give up her baby, her youngest. That it looks like there's a safe way for the baby to get to Sweden as long as the family, but she has to go alone. She can't go with her mother or her siblings. And so she gives up her youngest child in the escape, not certain if they'll end up in concentration camps or if they'll ever see each other again. And then the family keeps hiding and going, and finally they get passage on a boat, and as they reach Swedish territorial waters, they're shipwrecked. They're accidentally rammed by another boat, and everybody's thrown into the North Sea. And they all survive too. Like, not everybody on the boat does, but the whole family manages to like swim to a Coast Guard ship and make it out of the ocean in the middle of October and live. And so it's kind of this wonderful, very emotional thriller, right? I mean, and I have this 65-page testimony that she really, this mother wanted to make sure this story got preserved. And she put it in the Jewish Museum of Denmark. And then of the 4 kids, 3 of them are still alive and in their 90s. So I got to go interview them and get their stories and meet their children and meet their grandchildren. And it's just been a really fun project so far. But I haven't done much writing so far. It's always fun before you're churning out too many words.
Wow. Yeah. That sounds like something that I don't know. I don't read a whole lot of fiction or historical fiction, but it seems like something tailor made for like some kind of. And I think I said that about your last book. Like it's made for the movies. It seems in a way.
Yeah, I mean,
So.
I believe storytelling is like most memorable when there are characters you care about.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
and so a novel's great, but like that didn't happen. You know, history's even better because it did happen. And so if you can find the right historical character that gives us the window into a moment, and who we can hope for and who we can root for and whose dreams we care about and whose failures that we take personally, like that, I feel like history is more likely to stick if you're invested. And we have incredible powers of empathy that helps us invest.
Wow. Wow. Just one last thing though. I
Mm-hmm.
hope that in the year after you're finished and the
Mm-hmm.
marketing team comes up with how to market this, they don't say the only happy Holocaust book.
They,
I don't think that I just don't think that's gonna work, Sarah.
no, what they'll say is something more like it's uplifting, right?
Okay.
We've had so much bad news. What we need is uplift. You know, my
Right,
agent
right.
called it the Jewish Dunkirk, right? You know, like everybody lives.
That's not I mean, I wouldn't use that either, but it immediately makes sense to
Right.
me. Yes. Yes. Okay.
There are. This is terrible. Not. I don't want to make light of the Holocaust. Obviously, like it is this. It's a story we
Mhm.
keep coming back to because it keeps being relevant. Um, and that's part of why I'm so interested in this story is that we've had a kind of defeatist narrative that like Hitler was the overpowering force. Nobody could resist him. There's a kind of blanket absolvement of collective responsibility because so few people stood up and made a change, and which is why stories of the resistance are so interesting, right? Because that is small groups of people taking on personal risk. This was a whole nation, and it was like a whole nation united. Like they all had the power to betray the people they were helping. They could all, trade in for personal gain. And yet collectively, there was enough of a movement that they didn't. So, what are the conditions? Like, what does Denmark get right? How is it that they saw the Jews as part of the national us rather than a them? And that they saw the Nazis as people that you wouldn't want to collaborate with? Like, those are the questions in your field. There are people way better skilled to address this who've been spent an entire the past 80 years trying to figure out like what makes an altruistic personality, what makes an altruistic society, how
Hmm.
what makes a society that's low trust. So those are all really important questions. And then I read people like your colleagues and try to sort of frame it in a matrix of historical truth that over these 10 days, the nation made these incredible choices. And they were unique in Europe. So,
Okay.
and it's an
Well,
adventure.
that sounds exciting, and maybe when after the book comes out and you've gone on all the big networks and all the shows and you've done your book TV, you're
Mhm.
sitting down with Brian Lamb if he's still doing the thing, I don't know. And then after all that, then maybe you'll come back to me and we can talk more about the book.
Glad, and I will never say it. This is it. This is the end of the Happy Holocaust pitch. Like, I've been corrected.
I don't know. It was just a weird way of saying it, but I don't know. I don't know, Sarah.
It's just that it's the truly happy ending, right? Like that is what I
Yes,
like
it is.
about it. Is that it was a thing I realized actually in my most recent book in D-Day Girls that the first draft of D-Day Girls had fully a third of the book took place in a concentration camp, and every single day going to work was like this struggle because I realized like every day I went to work in a concentration camp. This is really hard. And then when I read the book, when I had my draft, I thought, it's hard to read. Like at a certain, uh, we won that war, and these are important stories, but it's also important to have hope. And so at the end of the day, like I want stories that actually do kind of align with a sense of hopefulness, which means not overwhelming us with the rough stuff.
All right. Sarah Rose, thank you very much.
Rob, thank you so much. I love talking to you.
Yeah, it's fun.